All right, folks, we're going to get started here. See, tonight we're going to be doing a Comparadun. All right, folks, we're going to get started here. I saw a thing on CBS Sunday morning, and it was fly fishing up on, I think they were on the Beaver Kill, but anywhere it was in the Catskills, and it just made me remind me of how darn effective the Comparadun is in the driftless area as well. It's my number one dry fly if there's a hatch of any kind. So this is an Isonychia. This is a size maybe a 12, but it's on a long shank hook. Might actually just be, yeah, it's a long shank. It might be a 14. I'm not sure. But I did a couple purposely wrong so I can show you guys some of the common mistakes. I want to show you guys that's what the wing should look like from the front. It should be a full 180 degrees. Okay, can you guys see that? It's a full 180 degrees. That's really important because that's what gives it the stability to hold in surprisingly turbulent water. The next thing that's important is to get that tail. I like to have almost 90 degrees there. So maybe you guys can see that. Let me see if I can get some light on there. See if I can get that to shine up. There you go. So that 90 degrees I think is important as well. What that really does is it prevents the back from falling through the water. And it allows me in the driftless area to suspend, honestly, some pretty decent sized nymphs. I can, on a size 16, I can actually get a pretty gosh darn decent sized bead, held up in the back. I can almost do an 1/8 size tungsten bead. Hey Chuck, hey Pete, hey Frank. What's everybody drinking? I've got Yingling. So I want to show you guys what I see is a mistake a lot of people do, and that's this funnel cone thing. Now I can take my fingers and push it back and make it look right, but as soon as it gets wet, it's going to do that again. And that's how it's going to sit on the water. It's going to sit looking like that, and that's, Chuck, you can't be dry. But anyways, that's just not what we want. We don't want to see this, tenkara looking fly. That's, by the way, it's really hard to actually try to tie a fly incorrectly. The other thing I see a lot of people do incorrectly is they use way too much hair. So look at that one. I mean, that one's got so much hair that it's, half the width of the hook. That one wasn't easy to tie either. But the one thing I will say is if you look at that just right, that is a very skinny body. You can tie this fly and get a very slender body to it. And I don't mind, on all of my flies, my legs are always too long. They're longer than what you would tie on a spinner fly, but that's because I want that back to not fall through, and those wispy tails coming out the back really, really help, keep it up there. So I've purposely chosen a very small fly to tie tonight. I'm going to do an 18. But there's a reason I'm doing that, and that's because 18 is the magic size for me. 16, I dub the bodies. 18s, I do a thread body and do a double in the thorax only. So I wanted to show you guys that little bit of a difference. Nice. New Glarus is a good beer. I do miss them. I like their Totally Naked and their Fat Squirrel, my two favorites. So tonight, A-Dot uni thread. I use micro fibettes, but you can use spade hackle if you want. You can use the Pardo, especially the whiting Pardo. That stuff's great. And then you can also, if you prefer, you can use natural something, on bigger ones you can use something like Pickery or Peccary. It's really up to you, but I like fibettes. They're consistent, they're easy. So I'm going to start with the wing. So one hook eye space behind the eye, couple wraps, break off that thread or cut it off however you want to do it. Then I've got some deer hair already cut. Nice. Sea Dog. I don't know Sea Dog, but blueberry beers can be really good in the summertime. So, one thing that's a little different, you got to take the hair out so that the tips are facing forward. You want to make sure they're, I cut enough off to do probably a size 14, maybe a 16. So, I got to trim some out of here. You want to make sure they're nice and even. That's a little too much hair still. So there, I like that amount of hair. Kind of measure the tips. That's where I need the wing to be. It's one of the few times I do spin my thread. I want it pretty tight. So I still notice I have not let go of the back part yet. So what I do is I actually come in, I just take 2 or 3 loose turns right over the front. That holds that wing down and out of the way for me. So that I can come in here and I want to trim this as close as possible. And yeah, I always make it do 2 or 3 cuts because I want to make it really, really tight. And I sometimes even like this one, I'm going to come back, trim those a little more because I can. I could see that they were a little on the longer side. Undo those wraps. Next, I check and make sure that I had it on the hook right. And notice it's way too far in the middle. So I have found that I can literally slide that forward. There, that's looking better. And the way I make sure that doesn't come on or slide anymore is I come back here to the back, put some tight wraps in there. Start grabbing slowly in there. Through the clipped hair. All right. And sometimes your wing will rotate on you. All you gotta do is pull it back to where it's, when you take your fingernail like this and you flare it, look at the front of it from the front and make sure it's 180. I actually rotated it and didn't need to. I did have it on there right. You also, when you do that, sometimes see you've got 1 or 2 legs pulled around underneath. You can fix that now. And those are actually trapped, so cut them out of there now. They're wrong. All right. Next thing I do at this point, believe it or not, is I put a drop of head cement that kind of soaks in both to the wraps and to the hair. It also it thickens the hair just a little bit, so that way when I'm done with this next technique and it shrinks a little, I'm good. Pull that hair back, come in front of it. We're going to build a thread dam here. This is the part where most people get it wrong on this fly. I'm sorry, I need more light. I know it's hot for you guys. I'll turn it off in a second. There. I've got my good 180, and it's standing straight up on its own. It doesn't, if I even push it forward, it doesn't really stay forward very much. So I know I've got that thread dam in there pretty good. So come underneath it, come to the back, Now I'm going to hit it with another drop of head cement. Notice I turn it upside down every time to do that. It actually goes into the deer hair, and as I do this, I can actually, it's going to dry with a little bit of a shine or shellac to that deer hair. Just helps stiffen it just a tiny bit, not a lot. So, but I like how it does that, holds its shape, and then by the time I'm done tying this fly, I can go through and flake it off. So, I got 4 fibettes here. I will also say at size 20, I go down to the ultra fine fibettes. 18s, I still can go with the regular ones. But at 20, I go down to the smaller size, and I still always do 2 on each side. I never do just one. Now, like I said, if I was traditional, I would come in, I'd measure the length of the hook shank, maybe the entire length, from the hook eye to the bend of the hook. However, I'm not traditional here. I want this tail to be long so that it'll hold the fly up. So what I do is, in either way, I would just measure to the proper length, but I'm gonna purposely tie it in long. But I hold it at a 45 on my side, and I let my thread torque bring those up to the top of the hook. There, they're at the top, and it's right above the barb. Go back forward. Make sure they stay on the top of the hook there. When they get up to the beginning of that bulge, I trim them out. Next thing I do, I come in with my fingernail, give them a little bit of a crease upward. 9 times out of 10, that allows me to go in and split them because it'll separate all 4 of them. So there, I've got 2 and 2 on each side. Bring my thread back, and I come under the side closest to me, and I'm just going to figure 8 this tail. So I've just figure eighted it, and you guys will see I've got that perfect 90-degree turn. There's almost 90 degrees between there. That's what I want. I think that makes a big difference. So, next thing again, drop a head cement. Again, I got one short hair here. I'm going to trim him out. Have to find what I did with my dubbing. I had it. It's under the deer hair. So you guys know I like my DRC dubbing. So now we've already said that this is a small fly, so it's not. I don't need this much dubbing. The whole thing's going to need that much. It's the whole fly. Maybe not even. So I'm going to take like half of that, put it on there. Half again. There. That's not a lot of dubbing lengthwise. I'm going to measure it here just to see. That's not even a full inch, and I think that's going to be just about the right amount. So. Just because of where my thread is, I'm going to do one full turn behind. You need a tiny bit more. That. I'm going to do that one more turn forward before I start that. Yeah. One full turn, and I come underneath it. Just going to figure 8 under and around the wing. Turn it under, make sure you've got what looks like an even bunch of dubbing. Mine did not look even. It's not with that piece there. There. 2 or 3 turns. On these small flies is when especially with my hands being rough today, I will use my whip finisher. Do a quick 3 turns followed by a 4 or 5. And we're good to go. Check and make sure you don't have any hairs trapped. If you do, cut them. I do put a drop of head cement in on that head. There. Now, you can see I've got a couple of points you want to look for. Notice my wing is pretty straight. You don't want to see it. You don't want to see it cocked at an angle like this or cocked at an angle like that. What that means is, as you were wrapping, you didn't have even pressure. It was tight, then loose, or you went on a different plane. Your plane was like this. So you want your wing to be straight. You want a nice V in your tail, preferably pretty wide. That really helps hold that back end up. Underneath, you just want a little bit of bulk from that dubbing. And you don't need a lot of it. Let me see if turning that light off will help. You can see that the dubbing starts right there, and there's only 1 turn in front of it. I mean, size 18 flies are tiny. There's not much to them. But the amazing thing is this deer hair wing is extremely visible, especially compared to, for me, once I get down to a size 18 or 20 parachute post, it's a little short white thing that just looks like a bubble out there to me. I've found that I have to go to orange or pink to be able to see it at any distance once I go that small. Now, size 14, I can see a white post. So I wanted to tie this fly again for you, but this time I wanted to show you what a trailing shuck would do to it, just so you can see the difference in how I tie it. Hook brand, TMC, either 100 or 101, whether you want hook eye flat straight or a hook eye down. I have a system that I use for most of my hooks. My 14s are hook eyes down, so a down eye. 16s are a straight eye. 18s are a down eye. 20s are a straight eye. And I do it every other size, so that way I can look in the box and go, that way I can look at it and go, oh, that's exactly what, that size, without having to pull it up and go, is that a 14 or a 16, or is this a 16 or an 18? I struggled with that for a long time. So to do that, I just made it to where I could look at the hook eye and tell me the difference. I haven't found a difference in whether or how it fishes, or whether it even how it floats or anything like that. I know a lot of people in the Comparaduns do prefer a straight eye, so that's why I'm tying it on a 101 right now, which is the straight eye. But we'll do the same thing here. Start the thread, 1 hook eye space behind the hook eye. Go back. Bring it back up to about where you think the wing will be. We're going to trim some deer hair off the hide. Get rid of the under fur. Give it a stack. And the reason why I chose this fly, before I forget, is partially because of the Catskills. It reminded me of the Comparadun as a pattern, but also in the driftless. Starting in the 2nd or 3rd week of September most years, you guys start getting one heck of a good blue-winged olive hatch out there. So, and this time of year, they're much smaller than they are in the spring. In the spring, I can normally use a 16. In fact, I use a size 16 blue-winged olive Comparadun all the way through as my main dry fly. If I've got a spooky fish, like if I can see one that's kind of rising and I don't want to fish an ant, and I know he's not going to take a hippie stomper because it's going to land too big, too loudly. If I've got one like at a tail of a pool or something, I throw a size 16 Comparadun at him all the way through now. And it's only when I start seeing smaller ones in the fall do I go to a smaller one. So I've got these stacked nicely here. So measure the wing about where I want it to be. Twist that up, back up. 1 turn, 2 turns, give it a flare. Tight wraps going back. Go. Come back forward 2 or 3 just to hold those tips down. Let's get our fine tip scissors here. Check to make sure. I knew that one was, I had the spacing just right on that one. Tell by the seeing the hook underneath it. We're doing that thread dam again here, folks. This is what really stands that wing back up and prevents you from getting that cone. We don't want this cone effect here. We want the wing laying back. You can actually build this dam strong enough to where it becomes a trude if you wanted to. I don't recommend that, but you could. All right. So I'm going to use some Z-Lon for my trailing shuck, but you can use EP fibers as well. The only thing I'll say, try to avoid Antron. Antron just has a tendency to pull the butt end of the fly down, which then makes the fly sink. If I have something a little bit more buoyant like CDC, I might be okay with it, but we don't have CDC on this one, so. Or even snowshoe hair would work. That's a little bit more buoyant. Not that deer hair isn't buoyant, but there's just not a lot of deer hair here. So I've got a little bit of a crinkled brown Z-Lon here, mayfly brown. First thing I do is I cut it off at a 45 going one direction, fray that out, find a couple other ones here, cut it at another angle. What I'm looking for is I don't want a square cut, because when I do this right, get a little bit of a taper to it. So it almost comes down to a point. It doesn't quite come down to a point, but if you see there, kind of got a bunch of different lengths there. That's what I want. Now here with the trailing shuck, I don't want the trailing shuck to be, an inch long out the back. I need it to match what the natural is. Now remember, any mayfly, the nymph is one size larger than the adult. So the nymph is going to be a 16, the adult's going to be an 18. If the nymph is a 12, the adult's a 14. So that'll help you determine the length of your tail. There, that's the tail, just a little bit. What that really does is when it sits on the surface film, it just diffuses the light and makes it look like there's something hollow there. And I think the fish, especially in the fall, those fish, they see that and know that fly is not getting away. It's crippled, it's stillborn, it's something, because the weather is always crappy. Hey, Captain Chris, how was the sea trout fishing today? Yeah, that's looking good. We're gonna put a whole drop of head cement over the whole thing. Get that worked into the wing. Like I said, it'll flake out in about 5 minutes. It'll just dry on its own. But it means that I've got the whole thing soaked all the way down to the hook, and that's where my dry flies, they never spin. So same thing again, we need that much dubbing for the whole fly. It's not a lot. Just putting a little bit right under the thorax. Slide that up. Get those first ones out of the way. Get them onto the front. In front. Turn it under and look. That's a little too much dubbing. Pull that off. Yeah, that's looking better. Let's do a whip finish here. 3 to start with, and followed by a 4 or 5 turn. Whoopsie. It's catching on my rubber. I have a Band-Aid on my hand, so it's catching on the back. Drop a head cement there. So again, this is a little sparkle done, but it's super effective. Let me turn the light off so it doesn't look so hot. But same thing here. You can see my wing is all in this plane. When you take it out of the vise, you'll see. It's 180 degrees. A lot of the times people will do it and they'll have it come up at an angle like this, so it's got a V, which means that body is going to sit down below the surface film. Those legs aren't going to come out and protect you and keep it upright. If you want that nice 180 like that, and then again, the reason why we do a size 18 with just a thread body, look how skinny that body is. Because size 18 mayflies have, once you get below 18, the body is super, super skinny. You know, and I can even, like I said, this is a size 8, I think. Yeah, this is probably size 8. I can still get the body pretty skinny on them. So that's a Comparadun. You guys are going to need them this fall up there in the Driftless, especially now that I assume they've kept the season open till October 15. I always saw them in October. And then after that, if you go over to Iowa, there's a ton of them over in Iowa, all the way through till about the second week in November. Normally there's pretty decent olive hatch over there. So if you guys have any questions about the hooks I used or how to choose the right deer hair for Comparaduns versus X-Caddis and Caddis, you can email me at alan@flyonthewater.com or message me here on Instagram. I'm happy to help you guys choose the right materials. I don't sell materials, but I can steer you to places that have the right stuff. I use all Nature Spirit deer hair. It's the only deer hair I'll use. So, talk to you guys later.